wind howled a mournful dirge through the dales, a chilling premonition of the storm brewing within the hearts of its inhabitants. The air, usually crisp with the scent of rolling fields and wood smoke, now hung heavy with unspoken fears, the ghostly whispers of past betrayals, and the suffocating dread of an unknown future. As dawn struggled to break over the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and ominous grays, the village of Emmerdale was poised on the precipice of a cataclysmic revelation, a truth so dark it threatened to consume everything in its path. This wasn't just another day in the Dales. This was the calm before the tempest, the hushed breath before a scream, a moment where every shadow held a secret and every silence screamed a warning. The farmhouse, usually a bustling hub of life, now felt like a mausoleum. Moira Dingle, her eyes rimmed with a sleepless fatigue that no amount of rest could assuage, paced the worn kitchen floor. Each creak of the floorboards echoed the growing chasm in her heart, a void left by Cain that expanded with every unanswered call. Her phone, clutched in a trembling hand, felt like a lead weight, each silent notification a fresh stab of fear. The scent of burnt toast neglected on the counter filled the air, a metaphor for the chaos that had taken root in her life. She stopped, staring blankly at a framed photo of Cain, his rugged smile a stark contrast to the despair etched on her own face. "Cain, where are you?" she whispered, her voice raw with a potent mixture of worry and a burgeoning, terrifying anger. "Why aren't you answering? Is it prison? Or worse?" The thought, barely formed, sent a shiver down her spine, a cold premonition that pierced her very soul. The image of John Sugden, that insidious serpent, slithering free while Cain faced an unknown peril, was a tormenting tableau playing on an endless loop in her mind. Just then, the front door creaked open, and Nate, Gerald Carter, entered, his own face a mask of concern. "Any news, Mom?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. He knew the tension, the unspoken dread that permeated every corner of the farm. He had felt the tremors of this earthquake long before it reached its devastating crescendo. Moira shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "Nothing, Nate. Not a single word. Chaz says he hasn't contacted her either. It's like he's vanished into thin air." Her voice cracked, betraying the stoicism she usually wore like a second skin. "I keep thinking about what I said. What Caleb did. The look in Cain's eyes when he left. That desperate, haunted look. I should have stopped him. I should have locked him in that pub myself." She sank onto a chair, burying her face in her hands, the weight of her helplessness crushing her. "He's out there, chasing a ghost, and John is still breathing." Nate knelt beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "He's strong, Mum. He survived worse. He'll be back." But even as he spoke the words, a seed of doubt, cold and undeniable, began to sprout in his own heart. The legend of Cain Dingle, unbreakable and immortal, was beginning to waver under the relentless assault of reality. Miles away, cloaked in the deceptive tranquility of the French countryside, John Sugden reveled in his newfound freedom. The opulent villa, a safe house arranged by Caleb, was a gilded cage, but for John, it was paradise. He stood on a sprawling balcony, a glass of expensive red wine in hand, gazing out at vineyards bathed in the soft glow of the rising sun. A sinister smile played on his lips, a chilling testament to the darkness that resided within him. He was a predator, always at ease in his natural habitat of deceit and manipulation. Ruby Milligan, her face pale and drawn, watched him from the doorway, a knot of revulsion tightening in her stomach. The cost of her family's safety, the price of Caleb's desperate gambit, was this man's freedom. It felt like a pact with the devil, and the air around John seemed to crackle with an unseen malevolence. "You seem comfortable," Ruby managed, her voice barely a whisper, laced with a fear she couldn't quite conceal. Her eyes darted around the lavish room, every piece of furniture, every painting, screaming of ill-gotten gains and moral compromise. John turned, his smile widening, revealing a flash of teeth that sent a shiver down Ruby's spine. "Comfortable? My dear Ruby, I am finally free. Free from the petty squabbles of Emmerdale, free from the judgment of the self-righteous, and most importantly, free from the lingering shadow of Cain Dingle. He took a slow sip of his wine, savoring the taste, savoring his victory. Though I must admit, there is a certain allure in knowing he's out there, a wounded animal baying at the moon, searching for me. He'll never give up, Ruby warned, a desperate attempt to inject some reality into his twisted fantasy. Cain Dingle is not a man to be trifled with. John chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Oh, I know. That's what makes this all so delightfully entertaining. The hunt, the chase. But he's a lamb to the slaughter, Ruby. A predictable, raging bull charging headfirst into a carefully laid trap. He's fueled by anger, by a misplaced sense of justice. And that, my dear, makes him vulnerable. So very vulnerable. He paused, his gaze hardening, a flicker of something truly disturbing in his eyes. And he's not the only one. There are others in Emmerdale who still harbor grudges, who cling to their pathetic hope of retribution. They will all fall, one by one. Ruby felt a cold dread settle in her chest. This wasn't just about escaping justice. This was about a vendetta, a calculated dismantling of lives. John wasn't merely running, he was plotting. And the thought of Cain, alone and vulnerable, hunting this monster, sent a fresh wave of terror through her. She had a terrible premonition, a vivid flash of Cain, broken and defeated at John's feet. Back in Emmerdale, the atmosphere at the Woolpack was palpably tense. Caleb Milligan, William Ash, nursing a pint he barely touched, sat with Aaron Dingle and Chaz Dingle. The forced camaraderie was a thin veil over the simmering resentment and fear that permeated the air. Aaron, still haunted by his near-death experience and the chilling revelation of John's true nature, was a bundle of raw nerves. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every distant siren a harbinger of doom. So, he's definitely gone to France? Aaron asked, his voice strained, his eyes darting toward the door, as if expecting John to waltz in at any moment. The trauma of the ravine, the coma, the terrifying realization of John's cold-blooded evil had left indelible scars. Caleb nodded, a forced confidence in his tone. That's what he said. He's not coming back, Aaron. He knows if he does, it's game over. He's gone for good. He tried to project an air of reassurance, but even he couldn't quite shake the gnawing feeling that he had unleashed something truly monstrous. The memory of Cain's unconscious form in the boot of his car, the sickening thud of the shovel, haunted his every waking moment. The betrayal, sharp and bitter, tasted like ash in his mouth. Chaz, however, was not convinced. Her worry for Cain was a palpable force, eclipsing her usual fiery demeanor. Gone for good? Caleb, you helped a murderer escape. You knocked out your own brother? What kind of good are you talking about? Her voice rose, fueled by a mixture of anger and a desperate protectiveness for her family. Cain's out there alone because of you, and now he's chasing a monster you set free. I did what I had to do for Ruby, for my family, Caleb retorted, his own temper flaring. The guilt was a heavy cloak, but he clung to his justification, however flimsy. John had that email. If it got out, Ruby would have been implicated. Everything would have fallen apart. And what about us? What about Cain? Aaron interjected, his voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. He nearly killed me, Caleb. He's a psychopath, and you gave him a head start. He pushed away from the table, his chair scraping loudly, the sound echoing the discord in the room. I don't care what he promised you. He's a liar, a manipulator, and he'll come back. He always comes back. A chill ran down Caleb's spine. Aaron's words, laced with such raw conviction, struck a terrifying chord of truth. He remembered the cold calculation in John's eyes, the way he spoke of his victims with a detached, almost scientific interest. Was he truly gone, or was this merely a strategic retreat? The thought of John returning, seeking further vengeance, sent a shiver of dread through Caleb, a realization that he had not merely opened a door for a murderer, but had actively rolled out a red carpet for a harbinger of chaos. He felt a sudden, sickening jolt of premonition, a flash of Cain, bloodied and broken, and he knew with chilling certainty that he had made a terrible, irredeemable mistake. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit confines of the local police station, Detective Inspector Malone sifted through the mounting evidence against John Sugden. The confession from Aaron, the horrifying details of Nate's murder, the systematic terrorizing of the village. It all painted a picture of a calculating, dangerous individual. A fresh cup of coffee, long forgotten, sat steaming on his desk. His partner, Detective Sergeant Miller, entered, a file in her hand. "Still no sign of John, sir. Border Control has him flagged, but he seems to have vanished without a trace." She paused, her brow furrowed. "And still no contact from Kane Dingle. His wife is growing increasingly concerned." Malone grunted, tapping his pen against a photo of John, his eyes narrowed in contemplation. "Kane Dingle, always at the center of the storm. He's a hothead, but he has a twisted sense of justice. If he's gone after John, things could get very messy." He leaned back, his gaze fixed on the wall map of the Dales, then beyond, to the sprawling coastlines and distant lands. "This isn't a simple disappearance, Miller. This is a meticulously planned escape. Someone helped him, someone with means and motive." He looked at Miller, his eyes piercing. "And I have a strong feeling that Caleb Milligan knows more than he's letting on." The timeline of John's disappearance and Caleb's sudden, convenient trip to the border, it's too neat. "You think Caleb helped him escape?" Miller asked, a gasp escaping her lips. The implication was staggering. "I think Caleb Milligan has a very difficult explanation to make," Malone stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "And if he has facilitated the escape of a known murderer, he will face the full force of the law. This isn't just about John Sugden anymore. This is about a much larger conspiracy, a web of deceit woven by the very people who claim to uphold justice in this village." He stood up, his posture radiating authority. "Put out an APB for Kane Dingle and bring Caleb Milligan in for questioning. We're going to unravel this tangled mess, one thread at a time." The hunt for John had just escalated, drawing in a new, formidable adversary and threatening to expose a shocking betrayal that would rock the foundations of Emmerdale. Kane, a shadow of his former self, stumbled through the cobbled streets of a desolate French coastal town, the biting sea air doing little to numb the icy dread in his heart. His clothes were rumpled, his face haggard, his eyes burning with an almost manic intensity. He had been tracking John for days, a relentless, solitary pursuit that had pushed him to the brink of exhaustion. Every alleyway seemed to whisper John's name, every distant siren a mocking taunt. He clutched a crumpled photo of John, a chilling reminder of the monster he pursued. His phone, long dead, lay forgotten in his pocket. He was a man utterly alone, driven by a primal need for vengeance, stripped of everything but his raw determination. He pushed open the door of a dimly lit bar, the stale smell of beer and cigarettes hitting him like a physical blow. He scanned the faces, his gaze piercing, searching for a flicker of recognition, a hint of his prey. A grizzled bartender, wiping down the counter, looked up, his eyes wary. "John Sugden," Kane rasped, his voice hoarse, his French broken. "Have you seen him? English man, tall, dark hair, cold eyes." He mimed the description, his desperation palpable. The bartender, a man who had seen too much, shook his head slowly. "Non, monsieur, je ne connais pas." But his eyes, a fraction too long, lingered on Kane, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. Kane felt a surge of frustration, a primal roar threatening to escape his lips. He slammed his fist on the counter, making the glasses rattle. "He's here! I know he's here!" As he turned to leave, a shadowy figure seated in a dark corner stirred. It was a local informant, hired by John to keep an eye out for any unwanted visitors. The informant's eyes, glinting with a mercenary gleam, locked onto Kane. He had found his target. Unaware of the eyes now fixed on him, Kane stumbled back out into the cold night, the wind whipping at his hair, the waves crashing against the shore, mirroring the tempest within him. He was losing hope, his body screaming for rest, his mind a whirlwind of torment. He felt a profound, chilling sense of isolation, a terrifying realization that he was not just hunting John, but was perhaps being hunted himself. The hunter had become the hunted, and the game, dark and deadly, was only just beginning. He found himself standing at the edge of a jagged cliff, the turbulent English Channel churning far below. The vast, inky expanse of the sea seemed to swallow his resolve, his very being. He closed his eyes, picturing Moira, Aaron, Nate, the faces that fueled his desperate quest. He wouldn't give up. Not yet. He would find John, even if it killed him. The thought, cold and resolute, was a chilling promise. Suddenly, a twig snapped behind him. Kane spun around, his senses on high alert, his hand instinctively going to his pocket, though he knew it was empty. The informant from the bar emerged from the shadows, a glint of malice in his eyes, and behind him, two other hulking figures. They advanced slowly, their intentions clear. "Monsieur Dingle," the informant smirked, his voice thick with a French accent. "We have been expecting you." Kane's heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat of impending doom. He was cornered, outnumbered, and utterly alone. A fierce, desperate defiance flared in his eyes. He wouldn't go down without a fight, not after everything he had sacrificed, not while John Sugden still breathed. He braced himself, a wounded lion ready to make his last stand, as the figures lunged forward, the roar of the waves a deafening soundtrack to his imminent capture. As Kane struggles, the scene dissolves into a rapid-fire montage of flashbacks, a brutal, visceral journey through John's reign of terror, interspersed with Kane's growing desperation. As Kane struggles, the scene dissolves into a rapid-fire montage of flashbacks, a brutal, visceral journey through John's reign of terror, interspersed with Kane's growing desperation. Flashback 1. John, with a chillingly calm demeanor, injecting Chaz with a powerful sedative, her eyes fluttering shut in terror. The cold, clinical precision of his actions, a stark contrast to the betrayal etched on Chaz's face. Flashback 2. Mackenzie Boyd, Lawrence Robb, gaunt and terrified, chained in John's desolate cellar, a single ray of light cutting through the darkness, highlighting his despair. The sound of John's mocking laughter echoing through the dank space. Flashback 3. Liam Kavanagh, Johnny McPherson, slumped against a wall, bleeding, John's shadowy figure retreating into the night, a cruel satisfaction on his face, the agony in Liam's eyes, a silent scream of injustice. Flashback 4. Jacob Gallagher, Joe Warren Plant, convulsing on the floor after a severe allergic reaction, John watching from a distance, a detached, almost scientific curiosity in his gaze, the helplessness of those around him, unable to comprehend the true culprit. Flashback 5. The horrifying scene of Nate's, not Jarrell Carter, but the original Nate, as per the established Emmerdale storyline that John killed. Body being dumped into the frozen lake by John, his face devoid of remorse, illuminated by the cold moonlight, the chilling finality of the act, the silent testimony of the icy water. Flashback 6. Amy Wyatt, Natalie Ann Jameson, her eyes wide with terror and shock, falling into the frozen lake, catching a fleeting glimpse of Nate's submerged body, a silent witness to a crime that would soon claim her own life, the desperate struggle, the cold embrace of death. Flashback 7. Kane, tied to a chair, John forcing alcohol down his throat, a sinister smile playing on his lips, stripping Kane of his control, his dignity, the humiliation, the rage simmering beneath the surface. Flashback 8. Aaron waking from his coma, his eyes filled with a searing clarity, pointing an accusing finger at John, the truth finally erupting, shattering the carefully constructed facade. The raw power of revelation. Flashback 9. The sludge leak at Butler's farm, the draining of the lake, and the horrifying discovery of Nate's skeletal remains, a silent scream from the depths, bringing the past violently into the present, the collective gasp of the villagers, the dawning horror. The flashbacks culminate in the brutal image of Caleb striking Kane with the shovel, the sickening thud echoing in the air, Kane's body slumping, and Caleb's face contorted with a terrible blend of guilt and desperation. The rapid-fire images, each one a fresh wound, underscore the monumental task Kane has undertaken and the terrifying power of the man he hunts. The scene shifts back to the Emmerdale police station. Caleb sits opposite Detective Inspector Malone, the fluorescent lights harsh and unforgiving, highlighting the weariness and internal conflict etched on his face. He's cornered, his lies unraveling thread by thread. Mr. Milligan. Malone's voice is calm, controlled, but with an underlying steel that promises no quarter. Let's talk about the night John Sugden disappeared. Your movements, your phone records. They don't quite align with your story of a simple drive to the border. Caleb shifts uncomfortably, his eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape. I already told you, Inspector. I just drove him. I dropped him off. That's it. He tries to sound confident, but his voice betrays a tremor. And Kane Dingle? Malone presses, leaning forward, his gaze unwavering. His wife is frantic. He hasn't been seen or heard from since he left, and you were the last person to see him before he vanished. What happened, Mr. Milligan? Did you facilitate the escape of a murderer and then silence your own brother to cover your tracks? The accusation hangs in the air, heavy and suffocating. Caleb flinches, the implication striking deep. No, of course not. I would never. He was in the way. He wouldn't let John go. I had to do something for Ruby. His voice rises in desperation, the carefully constructed facade crumbling. John had that email. It would have destroyed Ruby, destroyed everything. So you admit to knocking him unconscious? Malone asks, his voice chillingly calm, already knowing the answer. You admit to putting your own brother in the boot of your car and then driving a known murderer to freedom? He places a photograph of Kane, bruised and unconscious, from a hidden surveillance camera at a remote gas station on the table. This was taken hours after John Sugden's escape. Is this your brother, Mr. Milligan? And is this your vehicle? Caleb stares at the photo, his face draining of all color. The image is damning, undeniable proof of his betrayal. The guilt, raw and searing, finally overwhelms him. He covers his face with his hands, tears seeping through his fingers. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he whispers, his voice choked with remorse and fear. I just wanted to protect my family. I never thought John would. He trails off, the enormity of his actions crashing down on him. Malone watches him, a grim satisfaction in his eyes. And now your brother is missing, potentially in grave danger, all because of your actions. And John Sugden, a dangerous psychopath, is free. You have made a terrible choice, Mr. Milligan, and now you will face the consequences. The cold, hard reality of justice was finally catching up to Caleb, and the weight of his betrayal was about to crush him. Moira, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen from crying, watches the news reports on the small television in the farmhouse kitchen. The screen flashes with images of Kane, a desperate plea for information, juxtaposed with ominous warnings about John Sugden. The air is thick with a pervasive fear that seems to cling to every surface. Nate enters, his face grim. He's just spoken to Chaz. The police are questioning Caleb, Mum. They've got evidence. Moira lets out a bitter laugh, devoid of humor. Evidence? What good is evidence if Kane's not here? If John's still out there? Her voice is laced with a potent mix of despair and a growing, desperate anger. He betrayed his own brother, Nate, his own family. How could he? The image of Kane, alone and vulnerable, battling a monster, consumed her thoughts. Just then, the phone rings, startling them both. Moira snatches it up, her heart pounding. Hello? Chaz? A frantic voice on the other end, barely coherent. Moira, it's Aaron. He's had a panic attack. He's convinced John is back. He's seen something. Moira's blood runs cold. Seen what, Chaz? What is it? He's rambling about a letter, a symbol, something John left behind. Chaz sobs, her voice trembling. He thinks John's been watching us, that he never left. Moira drops the phone, her hands shaking. The implication is terrifying. John Sugden, the master manipulator, the psychological tormentor, never truly left. He had been there all along, a venomous serpent biding his time, watching, waiting for the opportune moment to strike again. The thought that he could be lurking in the shadows, closer than they ever imagined, sent a wave of paralyzing fear through her. The walls of the farmhouse, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison, every creak and groan a potential harbinger of doom. The scene shifts to a secluded, dilapidated cottage on the outskirts of Emmerdale, shrouded in mist and eerie silence. John Sugden stands in a dimly lit room, a macabre grin on his face, holding a single meticulously folded piece of paper. The air in the room is heavy with a sense of malevolence, a chilling presence that seems to radiate from John himself. He unfolds the paper slowly, revealing a crudely drawn symbol, a stylized raven, its eyes gleaming with predatory intelligence. It's the same symbol Aaron had been rambling about, a personalized calling card of psychological warfare. The hunter returns to his prey, John whispers, his voice a low, chilling purr that sends shivers down the spine. They thought they were rid of me. They thought I ran. How delightfully naive. He looks out the grimy window, a sinister gleam in his eyes surveying the distant lights of Emmerdale. No, my dear Dales, the game has merely entered a new, far more exhilarating phase. Kane may be in French prison, or worse, his fate sealed by Caleb's foolish betrayal. But that simply leaves the board open for a new player, a new pawn to sacrifice. He lights a match, the flame flickering in the oppressive darkness, and holds it to a corner of the paper. The symbol begins to burn, curling into ash, slowly revealing a hidden message written in a cryptic, almost ancient script beneath the raven. The words, when fully revealed, are chilling. The serpent awakens. The flock shall fall, one by one, starting with the lamb who strayed. John's smile widens, a predatory glint in his eyes. He is not merely a murderer. He is a puppeteer, pulling the strings of fate, orchestrating a symphony of terror. He places the burning paper onto a small wooden table, watching as the flames consume it, a silent vow of destruction. The chilling realization dawns. John Sugden never left France. He was always here, lurking in the shadows, orchestrating his grand return, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash his ultimate, devastating vengeance upon the Dingle family and all who stood in his way. The email was a ruse, the escape a calculated feint. He had been playing them all, a master of deception, and the game, deadly and personal, was far from over. The next day, the Dingle family gathers at the Woolpack, the atmosphere thick with a desperate, suffocating fear. Chaz, Aaron, Moira, Nate, and even Charity, her usual bravado replaced by a rare vulnerability, sit in stunned silence. The news of Caleb's arrest, coupled with Aaron's chilling revelation about the raven symbol, has sent shockwaves through the family. He's been here, Aaron whispers, his eyes wide with terror, staring at the door as if expecting John to appear. He left that symbol. He's watching us. He never left. Moira, her voice strained, addresses Caleb, who is now out on bail, looking utterly broken. You let him go, Caleb. You helped him. And now he's back. And Kane is God knows where, because of you. Her accusation hangs in the air, a heavy burden of guilt. Caleb, his face a mask of profound regret, can only shake his head. I swear I thought he was going to France. He convinced me. He made me believe it was the only way to protect Ruby. His voice is a desperate plea for understanding, but it falls on deaf ears. The betrayal is too deep, the consequences too dire. Suddenly, the pub door swings open with a dramatic creak. Everyone freezes, their hearts leaping into their throats. For a terrifying moment, they expect to see John Sugden, his sinister smile a harbinger of doom. But instead, it's Detective Inspector Malone, his face grim, accompanied by two uniformed officers. Mrs. Dingle, Malone says, his voice cutting through the silence. We have received disturbing information. It appears John Sugden never left the country. We believe he has been hiding in the immediate vicinity, orchestrating his return. A collective gasp sweeps through the room. The truth, in its terrifying clarity, lands like a physical blow. And we have also received credible intelligence regarding Kane Dingle's whereabouts, Malone continues, his gaze fixed on Moira, a somber note in his voice. He was located in a French coastal town early this morning, unconscious, in a disused warehouse, with significant injuries. He's been hospitalized. Moira lets out a strangled cry, a potent mixture of relief and agonizing fear. Injuries? What kind of injuries? Is he going to be okay? Malone shakes his head slowly, his expression grim. He's alive, Mrs. Dingle, but he was brutally attacked. It appears he was targeted, and the individuals responsible, they left a chilling message, a calling card. He holds up a crumpled, singed piece of paper. On it, partially burned, is the same stylized raven symbol that Aaron had described. The silence that follows is deafening, broken only by Moira's heartbroken sob. The chilling reality sinks in. John Sugden orchestrated Kane's capture, ensuring his most formidable enemy was incapacitated and out of the way, clearing the path for his ultimate, terrifying return. He hadn't just escaped. He had laid a trap, meticulously planned, brutally executed. He wasn't just back. He was here, among them, a vengeful phantom, his presence an invisible, suffocating shroud. The Dingle family, once fiercely united, now fractured by betrayal and paralyzed by fear, stood on the precipice of a nightmare far greater than they could ever have imagined. The serpent had indeed awakened, and the flock of Emmerdale was about to fall, one by one. This episode ends on a truly shocking and suspenseful cliffhanger, leaving the audience reeling with the implications. John never left, Kane is severely injured and incapacitated, and Caleb's betrayal has directly led to this horrifying escalation. The raven symbol is the chilling thread connecting John's psychological warfare, the attack on Kane, and his impending reign of terror. The stage is now set for a brutal, emotionally charged confrontation, leaving audiences desperate to know what happens next.